Welcome to the Science Mind. This is my costume for today's fabulous spaceport cantina this afternoon for our luncheon. So I have my costume. Are you coming in yours? But I can't see anything with it, so has to come off. All right. So we are having a little bit of an issue, power surges here at CSLDallas. We're having a little thunderstorm, a little lightning, and maybe somebody has, done something with a pole nearby. It's not completely off, thank goodness. But if we should lose you, we'll be attempting to get back on immediately. It's already been an interesting morning, but life is that way, right? So we are in our introduction, the thing itself. And we have come to this section on page 28 where we've been talking about prayer and spiritual mind treatment, why some prayers are answered and not others, and what the heck is going on anyway. And the last paragraph that we finished on is the question, what is mind? What is mind? And of course, that's a huge study right now. Lots of research going on in consciousness, on consciousness, what it is, how it works. Is it induced by the brain? And of course, in Science Mind, we understand the brain to be the organ of the mind as opposed to the other way around. And so we don't actually know what the mind is. What we can see is how it works. And so this brings us to a key point in the science of mind, in the science of consciousness, which comes out of the mental science strain of all of the avenues that were synthesized into the science of mind. And in the mental science strain, which builds on the advent of psychology, is this deeper understanding of mind that we haven't had up until this point. So the Greeks talked about psyche. They talked about the idea of psyche. They talked about their experience. But it wasn't until the late 1800s when people started to explore what was originally called mesmerism, with Anton Mesmer in France, and ultimately that became hypnotism. And of course, in the late 1800s on the Chautauqua circuit, when people didn't have YouTube and they didn't have TikTok and they didn't have television and they didn't even have radio, they went to lectures and presentations, and a lot of them were scientists and philosophers who went around and did these presentations. And so there was this huge influx of presentations around hypnotism. And if you will recall, of course, the big thing that was kind of the joke around hypnotism is you could make someone bark like a dog or cluck like a chicken, right? If they were easily conducive to being hypnotized. So despite the fact that at the time it became a bit of a joke, we do understand now that hypnotism is a very real therapy and it works very well for a lot of people. The most important thing in terms of the science of mind is that it's revealed something about mind. And that is this idea that there are two states of mind. There is that state of mind that where we're consciously engaged. We know we're sitting here. We know we're listening to this. We know that we're thinking a thought. We know that we're having a feeling. We are observing and experiencing and engaging with our lives, and we know that we're doing so. But what hypnotism, mesmerism, and then hypnotism revealed is that that portion of our mind could be set aside. And what was revealed was another aspect of mind that was responsive to input, responsive to suggestions, that you could say to someone, you're strong, and they would be strong, or you can jump, you can bark, you can do whatever, and there would be a response. There would be, the person would be able to do things. And we have documented evidence today of people who, in a crisis, can do things that they wouldn't ordinarily be able to do. They have the strength to pick up a car or to pull somebody out of a place that normally they would not have the strength to do. And of course, in all of the advent of psychology, we have seriously begun to uncover and understand this second state of mind. And this second state of mind, which we call, in psychology, we call it the subconscious or the unconscious. And in science of mind, we call it subjective mind. Now, it doesn't mean that there are two minds. It means that our mind functions in two different ways. In one way, our mind functions, we're conscious of it, and another way, it functions in the background. Part of the reason for this, in the 100 years of study that has gone on in all of this, is that we are inundated with so much information. There's so much going on coming in through our senses, our 5 physical senses, and all the other psychic senses that we have that we're barely aware of. It's like some ridiculous 6 billion bits of information or some ridiculous amount, and we can't process it all. And so our brain is designed to filter all of that out through the processes that are running in our subjective mind. What do we need to pay attention to? What can we ignore? What's normal? What's not normal? And we're constantly having only like 10% of that being made available to us, to our conscious recognition, because it's just too much. And so over time, what has become what has been realized is that what's running in the background are habitual ways of engaging in life, so that decisions, conscious decisions, don't have to be made, because you would have to make so many conscious decisions that we would become basically incapable of doing anything. And so the revelation that there's both a conscious state of mind and this other state of mind it was a huge turning point in being able to answer the question, why are some prayers answered and not others? Because the prayer is done with the conscious mind, right? The prayer is done, somebody speaks a prayer, somebody beseeches, somebody affirms, whatever it is, however they pray, right? But it's also what's running in the background that has a tremendous impact on what we're experiencing in our own lives. So the science of mind, the science of consciousness, is the understanding that we have these two states of consciousness. One that we are very aware of, and one that we have to work to be aware of. So Ernest Holmes starts here, there are not two minds, only two names, and talks about the mind. Mind, the thing, spirit, causation is beyond, and yet not beyond our grasp. It's beyond in that it's so big, but it's also within, in that wherever we grasp it, we are it to the extent that we grasp it. So we should stop saying, oh, you can't understand the infinite. Oh, you can't wrap your mind around it. Well, of course, we can't in its entirety. But there are absolutely things that we can, in fact, understand and that we can, in fact, engage in. And the more that we work to do that and the more we work to grasp, the more of it we become consciously aware of, rather than just automatically or subconsciously using. So again, two states of mind, not two minds or two consciousnesses. So We call it the objective or conscious state and the subjective or unconscious state. So let's talk about why we use in the science of mind the word subjective and not the word subconscious. He like plays with it right here, we play with it right here, but eventually the word subconscious is going to be abandoned, and we're going to focus on the word subjective. And it's one of these weird words in the science of mind you just have to memorize. Subconscious implies that it is below, that subconscious and unconscious both imply that it's sort of asleep, and it's not. This state of mind is constantly listening, it's constantly processing, it's constantly responding to all of the stimuli that's going on. So it's not asleep. And so Ernest Holmes picked the word subjective because it's subject to the impress of thought and the impress of life experience. Subjective mind. So in the subjective mind, we find a law obeying our word, the servant of our spirit. Suggestion has proved that the subconscious or subjective mind acts upon our thoughts. It is the mental law of our being and the creative factor within us. This is hugely important, right? So we say this thing in the science of mind, change your thinking, change your life, which is shorthand for, it really means change your belief, which really means change your subjective mind, change your life. We use conscious intention to change our subjective mind, to change our subjective beliefs, which is the creative factor within us. It is enough to say that within us is a mental law working out the will and purposes of our conscious thought. This can be no other than our individual use of that greater subjective mind, which is the seat of all mental law and action. And so remember that we are based on oneness. Something just got on my pants. Oh well. We are based in oneness. And so that mind, which is the mind of the one infinite reality, is also the mind which is the creative factor, the creative force within us. So the revelation that there's this huge aspect of our consciousness that is below the surface of our conscious awareness was revelatory and changed everything in the understanding of our relationship with the infinite. Because the creative force is actually the mental law within us, not some deity out there who's saying yay or nay. So we're going to stop there and see what comments and questions you have. This is a really important aspect of the science of mind. And sometimes we overlook how powerful it is to recognize that we have this amazing, what shall we say, reservoir of attitudes, habits, and beliefs. We have this amazing reservoir of attitudes, habits, and beliefs, which, on the one hand, which is actually what's manifesting in our lives. On the one hand, it's doing it without us paying attention to it. On the other hand, if we reprogram it, it will continue doing it without us paying attention to it, but in the new programming that we give it. Programming that is about abundance rather than lack. Programming that is about love rather than isolation. Programming that is about value rather than undeserving. Right? That's this whole piece that makes science of mind a spiritual psychology, is this revelation that there are two states of consciousness and that we are actively, constantly engaged with, and this is the reality of what's going on. What we want to do is bring that reality to our awareness and a little bit to our control, engagement, participation with, as opposed to simply being at the effect of what's in there. All right, so we're going to stop there. We're going to see if we have enough technology going to have a conversation. There's been a lot of hustle and bustle over there around the technology. So Ryan, I'm going to say good morning. Welcome back. We've missed you. Joseph did a fabulous job. But we're really glad you're back this morning, especially because we've had some pretty significant power surges. So tell us how we're doing.
I noticed that. And welcome everybody. Hi, hello. I'm the guy who's sweating over here in the corner this morning. Me and Richard are over here on our exercise routine, if you haven't noticed. So here's the deal with this morning. We are experiencing some power surges, so we're looking to identify those problems and get them taken care of as we possibly can, right?
Right.
And so we appreciate everybody's patience with us. So for those who are in the room, I was able to scramble one microphone. This is the little teeny microphone you see me talking on right now. Isn't this cute? Oh, sorry. Let me put my pinky up in the air while I'm talking in my little teeny microphone. So we can take online questions. So for those who are here with us online, please feel free to raise your hand. We'd love to hear from you today. All too often we don't get to hear from you, so we'd love to see some hands in the air. And for those who are here in the room, go ahead and speak your question or comment into the room. We'll try our best to reiterate it. So just keep that in mind. Those who are online are going to have a hard time hearing from you, but Dr. Peacher and myself will help to reiterate whatever we can. So would anybody who's on Zoom like to talk or share some part of their experience with us today?
Yeah. Or a question or a comment about this.
Cool.
I know this is not a very sexy topic, but it's hugely important, you guys. Hugely important. This is where we begin to get a hold of things and not just hope that somehow Spirit's going to love us enough to fix everything for us. Okay, we have a comment or a question out there. Ryan, go ahead. Good morning.
Something really fast that I'd like to pick apart because in it was a huge tool that you gave me. Must have been a year and a half or 2 years ago that I found very helpful. You said we have to change our attitude, we have to change our belief, and we have to change our habit. Now, changing attitude, once you get through the awareness and let Lizard have her run and learn some of the thinking tools and learn some of the practices, then changing attitude for me was role modeled within the community. It was demonstrated and taught through the classes and the workshops. Change in belief required that I have enough mental clarity and enough external awareness of experiences to make that belief true. So it took me a while from attitude to belief because it had to filter through experience. And the tool you gave me is the habit part of it. How much of the negative thinking, the reflexive behaviors that my lizard does that absolutely are opposite the outcome I truly want. And habit is something that I can consciously work with.
Yes.
Whereas attitude and belief, often I need to go pre-conscious. And so that tool that you listed all three really fast, I just want to put a strong plug into the actionable habit change step. Thank you for that gift.
Oh, Brenda, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you shared that. I'm so grateful that that was so helpful to you. And it is something that I do actually realize and spend a lot of time with people. There's only so much introspection and reflection that we actually need to do. right? And we come to the awareness, oh, I was told I was stupid as a child, and so now I feel like I can't do anything. Or, oh, we grew up in poverty and I just feel abundance is really hard, or whatever it is. That's why we go to therapy. That's why we work with spiritual coaches. We can uncover some of these things. And we can begin to work to reframe it, see it differently, come at it from a spiritual truth, right, which changes our beliefs. And what I notice is that people come to me and they've been practicing this for a few years or 5 years or 10 years. And the question is, why do I still talk to myself this way? Why do I still go to that place where that belief comes up, or that old feeling, or that old way of behaving shows itself? And the answer to that, as Brenda has said, is it's a habit. That's it. It's the only reason you still do it. Why? Because you have a synaptic pathway in your brain that is deep. And if your thoughts get somewhere close to it, it's like a little whirlpool that sucks that thought right into that synaptic pathway. And this is why, from science, neuroplasticity is so important. And why neuroplasticity supports the science of mind conversation that says trained thought is more powerful than untrained thought. Because what are we doing with our trained thought but creating new habits of thinking? No, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to believe. I'm going to think about what I believe about this. No, I'm not going to keep feeling unworthy. I am going to think that I am the universe showing up as an individual. Therefore, I am worthy. Therefore, right? And do you see, it's just a habit. It's nothing more than all the times you have a habit of going to the kitchen and opening up the refrigerator and looking in it. It's just a habit, right? We're standing there, we're not exactly sure what we're looking for, but we're looking for something and we think it's going to make us feel better, so we walk in there and we open the door and we look. And then we go back later, right? It's just a habit. That's all it is. And when we can realize that we have enough information, we know enough about ourselves, we've worked enough with spiritual truth that we actually do at least have an intellectual agreement with them. We start having an emotional investment with them. And then we have these habits that we simply have to rewrite. And so we can stop beating ourselves up for it. We can stop blaming ourselves for it. We can stop thinking that we don't know what we're doing or we're doing it wrong. We just have to have the discipline to realize that we are responding in a habitual way. And those habits, that's what lives in the subjective mind. That's what is, and that's what has caused the synaptic pathways in our brain. And neuroplasticity shows us that yes, in fact, you can teach an old dog new tricks. They used to say the brain was set and then that was that and it never could change again, and it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. We can continually rewrite that. And then our programming is actually in alignment with truth. And we don't have to work so hard at changing our minds in a particular moment or in a particular experience. Because then our habitual response is actually, oh, I'm deserving. Of course this will work out. Our habitual response is, oh, I know the intelligence of the universe is operating. Okay, I'm going to figure this out. It's going to come to me. It's going to come through me. Something wonderful is going to happen. That becomes our habitual response, not in some Pollyannish way, but because it's based on spiritual truths that we have come to believe. Beautiful. Thank you, Brenda. That was brilliant. I really appreciate you bringing that up. Ryan, I saw your hand again.
Yes, you did see my hand. I've been out in my European tour as a hand model. Thank you, everybody. I've just came back in the States to bless you with my presence. I wanted to share this question with you because I think that it really applies to what you're talking about. So, oftentimes we trade one habit to the next. So when we find ourselves doing that, how can we start to work to uncovering the root of why that happens?
Why it happens that we trade one habit for the next, like one habit we don't like for a habit that we didn't like. I'm not sure I 100% answer the question.
It's too contextual, but let's give an example. So say a person ends up in a life of drugs and alcohol, and then switches that over to over-exercising, overworking.
Got it.
And then
Perfect.
that continues to keep evolving into whatever it evolves into. But you can see that something is underlying there. What is it that they're running from? And how do we, as individuals, start to unravel that for ourselves?
Great question. That is a great question. I understand it much better. Thank you so much. So this is why we do the self-awareness piece. Because it's not enough to just change the habit. Because this is what will happen, right? We change our habits without understanding what the motivation or what the thinking and the belief that habit is built out of, right? So having a lovely background in drugs and alcohol myself, right, did a lot of research on that, especially in the science of mind. And as I began shedding all of that, right, and I did the same thing. So I went from drugs and alcohol to sugar, right, sugar and overwork. And I realized that, of course, what we're doing, especially in addictions, what we're doing is we're looking for something outside of us to make us feel better. We're looking for something outside of us to fill us up and to make us feel better. And it doesn't matter whatever kind of addiction it might be, right? It is that thinking that life moves from the outside in. And that if I can just have enough of whatever that is, I'll feel better. And when I stop feeling better, then I need more. I need the next wave of what that is, right? And so we can take destructive habits and replace them with what we think of as better habits, but we're still looking outside of ourselves. And so that's why the self-awareness piece, what's running in the background? I'm not good enough, my life doesn't work, whatever the story is that's running in the background, right? We have to begin to fill ourselves up from the inside, recognizing that we're sourced by that one infinite source, and that everything we have or everything that we need, we already have. It's not out there. Life doesn't work this way. Life works this way, right? And so when we are inside, in alignment with those deep spiritual truths, then our life is expressed and we are fulfilled because we're expressing ourselves. We're not trying to fill ourselves up this way, right? And whether it's drugs or alcohol or shopping or binge watching or likes on Facebook or, whatever it is, on and on and on, or even over exercising and over meditating and all the ways in which we think if we just do more of it, we will feel better. And the problem is we stop doing it because we can't exercise, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then we still discover that we're still not feeling filled up because we're doing it this way. When exercise is an outpicturing of the health and the wholeness that we enjoy, then our exercise is in alignment with that, and it is the physical work that we're doing to be healthy and to express that health. And it is in alignment with the rest of our lives. So it's a really great question, right? Self-awareness is a big piece of it. Recognizing spiritual truth is the second piece of it. And then building the habits is the third piece of it. None of these can be done in isolation. But we can enter into it from any direction. So we can start noticing the fact that we keep changing habits, but they're all kind of not working in the same way. We can look at the fact that we have our beliefs, but we're not applying them, or we're not living from them, or they poof in a crisis, right? Or we can look at what's going on in our consciousness, and in this case, in our subjective consciousness that we're not aware of. And they all feed together. So we can enter into the process in any place, but all of it is predicated on this understanding that we have this ginormous, for lack of a better analogy, we have this ginormous computer with all these programs running in the background. And we can either choose what's in there, or it's just all the stuff that somebody else has installed. That's that whole piece of why this idea of the subjective mind becomes so empowering. And that we can use that subjective mind to support us. If we are going to be run on habits, why not have them be the kinds of habits that are in alignment with our spiritual truth? Why not have habitual beliefs and habitual responses that are in alignment with the truths that we've come to understand? So over and over and over and over again, then we get to practice, right? So for me, I went from drugs and alcohol to sugar, to lots and lots of work, to family. Oh, and somewhere along the way, I realized I believe that if I will eat something, take something, drink something, put something in my body, it will make me feel better. So I began deliberately gathering all of that in and telling myself, well, you'll feel better if you go out and you buy yourself a latte. So just buy yourself a latte. Well, of course, then I had to get rid of the caffeine because I was buying way too many lattes. I had to get rid of the sugar because that wasn't helping at all, right? And so I would go in and I would order a decaf, 2% milk with stevia, or with, at the time, Splenda or whatever fake sugar in it. I can't tell you how many baristas said to me, what's the point? Why are you even getting this? Because I didn't need the caffeine. Do you see? I was tricking myself into thinking that this was going to make me feel better, because everything up until that point was having a negative impact on my body. So I deliberately got the most innocuous thing I could think of, and then I began working on remembering nothing outside of me can make me feel better. Nothing outside of me can make me feel better. I don't need anything outside of me to make me feel better. Everything I need is within. Everything that I need is within. Everything that I need is within. And I'm here to tell you that, gosh, for almost a year now, I am virtually latte free. Right? Okay, and we're talking about an addiction that started when I was 11. I started smoking when I was 11. I started smoking pot when I was, I started drinking when I was 12. I started smoking pot when I was 14. And I went down the drugs and alcohol road for 10 years after that in a big, huge way. So we're talking about a lifetime of this kind of false thinking, right? And by deliberately working to it, and thank you for the applause. I mean, it is like, it's huge. I no longer believe that there is something outside of me to ingest that will make me feel better. It's life altering, because I know it comes from within, and I know everything that I need is already present. Do you see? But that's the work. That's the work. And I did exchange one habit for another. But partly there was a time when I was doing that deliberately because I didn't know what else to do. And keep working at it, and keep working at it, and keep working at the awareness, and keep working with the belief, and working with the awareness, and working with the belief, and then working with the habit, right? We keep weaving those things together back and forth in our spiritual practice. That's why our spiritual practice is a discipline. That's why we continually work with it. That's why we're in community. That's why we're in classes. That's why we come on a Sunday morning. That's why we're here on this, doing this, right? Is so that we can over and over and over and over and over again remember how it works and ask ourselves, where in this moment do I need to apply it? Ryan, back to you.
Yes, and thank you for all the Starbucks coffee cards, Petra. I really appreciate that. I was wondering why all of a sudden I just started getting a whole lot of them. All right, I'm going to squeeze in one last comment here from Pamela online. Pamela, would you like to unmute yourself and join our conversation?
Good morning, Pamela. Oh, you might have to unmute yourself.
There we go.
I just wanted to say thank you for that affirmation that nothing outside of me can make me feel better. Everything that I need is within me. Like that is really, resonated with my soul because I suffer from addiction and I want to stop. So I'm going to try to implement that on a daily basis. When I feel like I need to smoke or I need to, run and get some coffee to give me that extra boost of energy, I'm going to rely on that. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, thank you, Pamela. Thank you for sharing that, and I'm so grateful. And let me just assure you that we're all on the path together, right? We borrow affirmations from each other. We borrow each other's hope and strength. We borrow each other's hand to, get pulled up, and then we have a hand to reach out to somebody else. So I just so appreciate you sharing that, and why it's so important to share, right? To talk about how have we done it? And the other thing is we might have done it really well in one area of our life and we forget and we're not doing it so well in another, right? So we can borrow it from ourselves. I call it transferring our skill sets from one area to another, but we can also transfer it from somebody else. And if their words are the right ones, just borrow them. Or if they're not quite right, borrow it and then shift it. Shift it for what works for you. And feel that internal resonance. Yeah, and of course that's why we do all of this together. Julia, did you have something you wanted to add?
Just a quick thing, because I experienced it this week, and I want to share it because I understand the struggles that we go through as we continue expanding. And this week I had one day that I got up and it was a really bad day. I was really down and I kept having the same thought, and I decided, well, I'm going to go out. And when I went out, I decided, well, I know what I'm going to do. As I walk, I'm going to say, I let it go.
Yes.
And I turn to peace. I let it go.
Yes.
And I turn to
Yes.
joy. I swear to God, I am not lying. It is like something, it's like, I can't even express it.
Yes.
Because it just made me feel so good. And I just let it go, and it hasn't come back.
I'm so proud of you for applying. This is what it means to apply, right? Thank you, Julia.
What am I going to do? I want
Right.
to get out of here, feel better. I don't want to keep thinking the same thing over
Right.
and over again. And I said, I don't want to. I'm going to
Good for you.
I'm gonna let it go,
Yes.
And I'm going to turn to peace.
Beautiful.
Amen.
Yay, I love that, right? And that's what it means when we say trained thought is more powerful than untrained thought, right? Julia set her intention. She said, I'm going to do this. Then she went out and did it, and she walked, and she got her whole body involved, and her energy involved, and her mind involved, and her spirit involved, and boom, 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 right? That's what it takes. And it's not just, I know this information. It's applying it in the moment. Oh, you're going to hear me talk about that today. I'm going to I'm going to share probably more than I usually do because I've been just right in the middle of it. Right? And you got to reach for the tools. If you do not reach for the tools, they will not work for you. But if you do, trained thought is going to make a difference because the conscious mind is what has informed our subjective mind. It always works that way. This is just running on automatic, right? And so we can inform and we can write new programming. We don't always have to know what the old programming is. That's what neuroplasticity has taught us. You simply write a new one. and the old one dies from lack of use. Sometimes there's still kind of, you're back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, but eventually if this one, the new one, is getting more and more and more and more intentional work, the old one will simply atrophy from lack of use. They literally can see that the synaptic pathways, the synapses, they start to loosen their hold on each other, and that pathway is no longer there the way it was before. So, yeah, we're all on the road together. So we'll see you in the celebration, either online or in person today. If you're in DFW, please do join us, because we do have our Spaceport Cantina luncheon. You may come in costume. This is my costume for today. You may come in costume, or you may come as you are. We have a fabulous luncheon this afternoon, catered by Celebration Bakery. We're truly excited to see you. We love being in community with you. Bye for now.